Hello and welcome to the Build Up in association with Ladbrokes. I'm your host David Gillick and I'm joined by Ladbrokes ambassador and former Ireland international Stephen Ferris. Stephen, how's the form? How are you keeping?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. It's been a crazy couple of weeks of rugby and another unbelievable weekend coming up. So very excited. Working the match on Saturday up in Belfast. It's a late kickoff, 8 p.m. kickoff, Ulster Toulouse, and we'll touch on it briefly shortly. But keeping well. My back's been at me, David, so I haven't been playing as much golf as I would like, but I've been watching plenty on the TV.
Yeah, what did you make of the Masters last weekend?
Oh yeah, it was class. Brilliant to see Rory McIlroy finish on a high. I know Paul McGinley doesn't like to say too many positive things about him, but he had to eat his own words, didn't he, towards the end of the broadcasting. It was good to see. Unfortunately, Scotty Scheffler, I think, was too far ahead in the last day, especially around the Masters, and his game was in good order. So, yeah, a couple of boys slipped away, but what a showing from the Irish boys. Parr, Shane Lowry, who's playing again at the minute, and Rory McIlroy. So long may that continue.
You had a shout in Smith, who you've been following over the last couple of weeks and months. Were you surprised to see him kind of challenging the early rounds?
He buried the first two holes in the final round, and I was like, oh, here we go. And then he gets it within two, I think. And then Scotty Scheffler and Cam Smith are right beside each other. They both miss the green left, drove it left of the green. And, yeah, Scotty Scheffler chips in, and Cam Smith put it 20 feet past and didn't make the putt back. And from the third hole, it just felt like it was Scotty Scheffler's tournament. And Cam Smith just, I think, was trying too hard and sort of fell down a little bit, the leaderboard. But yeah, he's always a good pick. He always seems to be a top 10 finisher, a bit like McIlroy. With the odds, if you're getting anything from 16 to 20 to 1, quarter of the odds for a top 10 finish usually isn't bad going in the golf tournaments.
And like you mentioned there as well, it was great to see the Irish kind of up there challenging, and with a big summer ahead, hopefully they can carry that form into more competitions. But as you know, and your own golf, it's a frustrating sport. But we'll get to that maybe another day and how you're progressing. But
no worries.
Looking at the rugby, okay, just to kind of refresh people's memory, the round of 16 first leg scores: Connacht 21, Leinster 26, Toulouse 20, Ulster 26. That's the win for Ulster, and then Exeter 13 and Munster were 8. So when you kind of reference and you look back to Ulster, they had that big win against Toulouse away, and they do have a very good chance now going through. There was that red card, but it was great for Ulster to get that win last Saturday. What are you thinking? Are you confident enough for Ulster? Do you think they're in a good place going into this?
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see when the teams are announced. That's probably going to be around lunchtime tomorrow, and I'll actually have a wee look at the odds after that. I don't think there's going to be much in the game. Toulouse last week were obviously favourites. I think it was 8 points in the handicap last week. So I think it could be a lot tighter. I don't think there'll be any points, maybe one or two. Ulster haven't lost at home all season in any competitions. They very rarely lose at home. They very rarely lose at home to French opposition, more importantly. So, all the odds are stacked towards Ulster to get a result. They didn't pick up any glaringly obvious injuries at the weekend either. John Cooney got through a good 70 minutes as well. He was cramping up at the end, played superbly. And, some of the areas of the game that I was massively concerned about was the scrum. There wasn't a scrum in the game until the 35th minute or something. Or maybe it could be even closer to half-time. It was just a frantic game, end to end. Lots of errors and mistakes, which actually made it brilliant to watch, because when there was a turnover, the other team just then played, and then there was another turnover, and then it was played again. So it was just a really good game of rugby, and thankfully Ulster come out on top. And I know the red card had a huge impact on the final result.
When you mentioned there it's going to be a tight game, when you look at the 6 points, is that enough?
Yeah, I think it is enough. I do think it's enough, and Toulouse are saying to themselves, win by score, win by 7 points, and we're through to the quarterfinals. The reigning European champions. But like the Kingspan Stadium sold out. Well, if it's not sold out, it very nearly will be come kickoff. We all know that can add 5-7 points to any game, and you've got that home advantage. They've a good game under their belt away from home after that international break. I think a bit more cohesion this week. Their line-out didn't function that well against Toulouse. Like, if Ulster had been able to win their line-out ball and secure their line-out ball, it could have been 10, 12, 14 points of a margin. Obviously, Toulouse scored in the last couple of minutes of the game as well. So I'm expecting a bit of a fight back, redemption maybe for the Toulouse team. Dupont has to play better. Like he was unbelievable in maybe 10 of the things that he did at the weekend, and then he was absolutely shocking in 10 of the things that he did at the weekend. And he's got to really make sure that his game is on point. And Ntamack can maybe pull the strings. But if I'm Toulouse, you revert back to the old French, win the battle up front, keep Maul the life out of Ulster, scrum the life out of Ulster, win penalties, plant the seed of doubt in the referee's mind, instead of trying to throw the 50-50 offloads from the first minute. But it's Toulouse we're talking about here, so God knows what way they're going to turn up.
And tell us, what's it like coming into a game like this? And you mentioned, like, up in the Kingspan, it's going to be packed. There's going to be an atmosphere. You're going to be there working. But, when you were playing and you come into these big games, what is it like in that dressing room? What is it like in the days leading into it?
Oh, it's class. Like, the whole week's build-up, especially off the back of a really positive result. The thing with this Ulster team now is that they play with no fear. Lots of young guys who haven't experienced, the dull old days of, not even being able to win away from home in Wales, never mind away from home in the European Cup. Like every single year, they're winning consistently away from home, and then at home it's a bit of a fortress. Ravenhill was always a fortress now, the Kingspan, of course. No team likes to come there. Remember Stephen Jones, the old Welsh-out half? I went with him in the British and Irish Lions tour, and he said, used to hate going to Belfast. Like, you walk out of the tunnel, the next thing is 40-mile-an-hour wind hits you in the face, and the sleet's coming down sideways, and you're like, what am I doing here? Like, why am I playing here? So already, that negative mindset in some of the players, and even like Stephen Jones, for goodness sake, 80 or 90 caps for Wales, and even he's thinking that it's a tough place to go. So, however, the weather looks to be okay for the weekend, even though it's a late-on kickoff. But, it's a tough place to go, and Ulster should really back themselves. But that's exactly what they've done all season. And if they turn up, I believe they'll win.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. When we look at the other games, we focus now a little bit on kind of Leinster Connacht. They're playing Good Friday at the Aviva. And when we look back to the previous game, it was a great game. It was brilliant. Yeah. A lot of people will be looking at Gibson Park yellow, massive talking point. When you look at it, for people that maybe didn't see it, he was cited and he was cleared to play. What's your take on that decision?
Yeah, I think the two lads, Ben Kay and Bran O'Driscoll, in commentary, definitely thought it was a red card by the way they were chatting about the incident. And like, yourself, Dave, when you slow everything down, it looks so much worse. Like, and I think when it's played in real time, the correct decision was made. Like, give him the yellow card. It was too high, but there was no actual force or drive and impact into Kieran Marmion's head, I think it was. Yes, he had a bloody nose, but he'd run in full tilt, and he actually smashes into Gibson Park. So I think the right decision was made in the end, even though he was cited after the game. And that's obviously been sorted out, and he's available to play this weekend. And he's playing brilliant rugby, and like Leinster, going 7-0 down or 5-0 down, Cardi missed the two-pointer. And the next thing, the whole of the sports ground just lifted up, and like the atmosphere was class, and I got totally absorbed into the match through the TV screen. Like, it was class. And then, it was like you tickle the bear, like, and they come alive, and the next thing, Leinster just come driving forward, score a couple of tries, and I'm like, that's it. Same old Leinster are gonna, knock two bells out of these lads. But Connacht came back into it. Held out, had large periods of possession in the second half, didn't stray away from their game plan, kept the ball alive. Mac Hansen was all over the place. Bundy Aki is such a huge weapon for Connacht. So good going forward, and we all know how good a talisman he is too. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this game. However, I do think that Leinster are gonna turn back to the old days and give them a bit of a thump, and it'd be interesting to see what the handicap is in this. But a 15 to 20 point win I'm expecting here from Leinster. Big, wide, open pitch, large crowd at the Aviva, and a couple of points advantage from last week. Leinster should do the business.
Yeah, so you're not really giving Connacht a chance?
No, yeah, well, you can never let a team off, especially in knockout rugby. And this is the last game of it. Like the first game's been and gone, but they're behind on the scoreboard already, and they're away from home, and they're against the majority of the Irish team, and most of those guys are in form. So yes, I don't give Connacht that much hope of winning the game. If they play absolutely out of their skins, possibly there may be an upset, but for me, it's going to be a Leinster win, as I say, 15 to 20 points.
That's fair. And when we look at Munster Exeter, big week for Munster. Obviously, talking about Graham Rowntree is appointed the manager this week. What do you make of that decision?
Yeah, Graham Rowntree, I played under him in the 2009 British and Irish Lions. He was the scrum coach back then. Such a nice fella, top lad. Has climbed his way up the ladder and thoroughly deserves his opportunity to be given a shot at being a head coach. He's passionate about Munster rugby. You read any of the social media about him, any of the local clubs, he pitches up to Dolphin on a Saturday morning or Sunday morning to watch games, and he goes to the local clubs and mixes with the local communities and gets out and about, and he's not just there to pick up a paycheck and go into work every day and coach Munster. He's definitely trying to make sure that foundations are in place, not only for the next year or two, but for the next 10 years. So I think it's a good appointment by Graham Rowntree. I heard that Vern Cotter's name was in there for the job, but Graham Rowntree must have interviewed well, and I wish him all the very best this season or next season, a couple of seasons in the new gig.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say there about kind of Rowntree and looking at the wider. It's not just that kind of the team he's managing, it's that community around that team. And it's interesting because Lancaster was very similar like that as well, around kind of Leinster, and I heard him speak before and he was all about that. And maybe it's because his former background as a PE teacher, maybe that's the kind of mindset. But there was a picture doing the rounds this week, and you had, I think it was you probably saw it, the English kind of coaching team back from 2015, Lancaster, Farrell, Cat, and now Rowntree, and they're all now going to be or already are in key positions in Irish rugby. So, what do you make of that? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Or is it something that maybe bringing the likes of these people in maybe to progress some of our own coaches? How do you see it?
Yeah, don't get me wrong, Dave. I prefer to see Irish coaches doing well. That's just the Irish in me. Of course it is. But you have to look at it. Such a good job, and Andy Farrell in particular, Mike Cat doing such a good job. Lancaster is obviously the guidance of Leo Cullen and Felipe Contapome at Leinster over the last number of seasons, but the hard work and dedication these guys are showing is so high, and I have a lot more respect now for some of these guys, because obviously in their previous jobs, when you work in England or you work to the English RFU, it's almost every time you go out and you have a performance, if it's not world class, then you're getting sacked the following week. And we're here in Ireland, they seem to have a bit more breathing space, and Andy Farrell has chatted about, even in his post-match interviews over the last couple, since he's been in charge, he always says that we're not always going to be perfect. And he says this all the time, that's, every time it's repeated, we're not always going to be perfect. And I think, over in England, they wanted perfection from him. They wanted perfection from all their coaches, and that's just not, it's just not achievable whatsoever. And here in Ireland, they're given a bit of a license to implement what they want. And They're all going well, and hopefully Graham Roundtree can bring back a bit of that Munster enthusiasm and self-belief that we've seen in years gone by with O'Gara, Stringer, O'Connell, O'Callaghan, Axel Foley, all the big names that were down there. And there was a photo Alan Quinlan put up on social media about, I think they won away in Harlequins maybe back in 2003, 2004. And he's taking a picture, like he walks up a few steps. And honestly, there's like 10,000 Munster supporters on the pitch after the game, after the final whistle. And this is like a knockout game. And that's the travelling support that there's always been with Munster. So, roll back the years. Hopefully, Graham, and we wish him all the best of luck. He can bring back a few of those glory days.
And those glory days, to rely on that going into this weekend, when you look back at the result, a loss 13-8 to Exeter, they've now got that game taking place at home. How do you see that going? Like, it's a big ask. They're going to need all that support, all that motivation, all that kind of legacy that they have. But is it enough? Can they turn that around?
Yeah, I think they can turn it around. Definitely. Again, squad selection. There's a number of injuries at Munster. That was a huge area of concern getting into the Exeter game. Exeter obviously went down to 13 men in the game. Let Munster off the hook. Try saving tackle by Keith Earls. It always felt like Munster were hanging on by the fingernails in that match until it sort of flipped on the head with those couple of yellows. And that's what they got to do this weekend. They've got to meet fire with fire. We all know Exeter have a big pack, love the pick and go, pick and jam game. Turn to their maul an awful lot. They had Ian Whitten playing at 12 last week, who's a big monster of a man. Loves to crash the ball up as well. So I'm expecting this Exeter side to revert back to lots of scrumming and mauling, a bit like what I'm expecting Toulouse to do against Ulster. And if they can do that and get a foothold in the game, then they can easily turn over this Munster side. But it just feels like it's one of those seasons for Munster. Like, all we have done is complain about how Munster are playing. Like, all we've done, me as a pundit sitting with BT Sport or Premier Sport or whoever it's been, and anytime Munster comes up in conversation, it's always negative. Always negative, like, because of the style of rugby that they've played. And with Johan van Graan now leaving at the end of the season, and coaches coming and going on a regular basis, it wouldn't surprise me if they grind out a win for the coach and for them moving forward. Like, I don't think they're going to win the European Cup. I don't think they're a good enough team to do that. But if Dale Ende, Fowl, I don't think Coombs is going to be fit, but a couple of big lads up front, pitch in. Peter O'Mahony, will he play this week? They've got a chance, and if a 5-point deficit isn't too much to try and claw back.
No. So just to finish off, then your neck on the line here. So Leinster, Connacht, who's going to win?
Leinster by 20.
Okay, and Ulster, Toulouse.
Ulster going to win. Unbeaten at home all season, so they have to win. And yeah, it'll be awesome to see. I'm going to be there. I can't wait. The atmosphere is going to be electric. So, and I'm going to go for a Munster to lose by 4 points and still go through.
It's really meant to be positive here.
Sorry.
Stevie, thanks a million. All right, and good weekend and all that rugby. All right.